U is kind. U is smart. And U is important. We have the power every single day to shape their character, to help them become the adults that we hope they will be.
Oh, hi! Hello! Welcome! So kind of you to join me.
Make a wish and let your dreams take flight. Oh, to please grab your hat, wave flying, it'll be a delight. Open up your eyes to the magical skies, so full of wonder, fun, adventure, oh, a jolly grand time. Are you ready for another story time? Deliver an extra turkey tickle, sparkling no time.
Oh, look! Look who has come to visit me. I am so happy that you decided to drop by. Have you seen my cool sword? And my crown? I feel like a prince today. Welcome back to our Amigos and Flamingos book club. So good to see you again, my little friends. Guess what I'm going to speak to you about today? Guess! I'm going to tell you why it is so important to say nice and positive things to others and to yourself. Hashtag self-love. But first, I have a question for you. Are you kind to your friends and family? What about to strangers? Excelente! Have you noticed just how happy they are when you are kind? After all, it costs absolutely nothing to be polite. But you don't have to take my word for it. Oh, silly me! I almost forgot to introduce the author of this extraordinary book. Our author of the week is none other than Brandon Walden. His first book, Seeds and Trees, was published in June of 2018. It was so successful that it became a national bestseller almost immediately. And it's part of a trilogy. That means 3 books that will be released over the next few years. His biggest passion has always been to help others. The reason why I chose this particular book is because it is deep and meaningful. Hint, it's about the importance of words, about expressing our feelings and emotions in a positive way. Mr. Walden says that he wrote this story hoping it would change the world. The metaphor used, which defines our thoughts as seeds becoming trees, is what has truly intrigued readers all over the world. Readers like myself. And very soon, readers just like you. Beautifully written, it highlights the importance of gentle words and how powerful they can be. Moreover, he pays close attention to the illustrations, which he considers to be fundamental in children's books. I couldn't agree more. Choosing the right illustrator to bring your story to life is crucial. Our talented illustrators of the week, Kristen and Kevin Hoddeshell, certainly did a phenomenal job here. In fact, it was the artwork that sparked my interest when I first laid eyes on this book cover. And now, let's go plant seeds and make our beautiful trees grow. Hey, it's time for another book review and story time with Gilbert-Ian.
Please don't talk about me when I'm gone. Oh, honey.
Seeds and Trees by Brandon Walden, illustrated by Kristen and Kevin Hoddeshell. In the land of the king lived a special young prince who loved climbing trees and playing with friends. He lived in a castle overlooking the sea. He played in a field with his 2 kinds of trees. He carried a satchel slung low on his waist to contain all the seeds he might want to exchange. Each seed was a word that someone had spoken. Each seed was collected, a trinket, a token. It didn't quite matter from where it had come. A stranger, a friend, a whisper made up. He rose every morning to water the seeds from each of the words he'd already received. When someone spoke nicely, not anything mean, they'd hand him a seed whose true essence was green. But sometimes the seeds would come bringing pain, seeds of dark color whose trees produced shame. Several dark seeds grew quickly then withered. Others remained to grow slowly, unhindered. At the end of each day, he'd admire the seeds and go plant the new ones and play in his trees. Cha, cha, cha. The trunk and the branches of dark trees were laden with thistles and thorns, causing pain as he scaled them. Climbing these trunks and these branches was tricky. Each part of the tree that he grasped was quite prickly. Each time the prince climbed, he was bruised and was slit. Yet trees are for climbing, so through pain he'd persist. But each time he climbed up his trees clothed in green, he felt safe and healed, as those trees weren't mean. His green trees were strong and they welcomed his touch. Their branches grew fruit he could eat or could clutch. He could sit at the base or climb to the peak. He could rest in the branches or play hide and seek. As years passed, he noticed his green trees were weakening. The trunks at the base of the trees needed strengthening. Now the soil had hardened as life was escaping. Their canopies were covered. His dark trees had shaded them. He would plant his green seeds and dark seeds beside. Then they'd war with each other and try to survive. His green trees were strongest with plenty of light, but his dark trees grew stronger in the darkness of night. They shared the same water and sunlight to grow, but the dark trees were hiding the fruit that would show. The green trees caused life, joy, and peace to grow near, but the dark seeds killed soil and grew trees clothed in fear. The field the prince planted had started to show many trees of two kinds and the fruit that had grown. The fruit fell like seeds to the soil down below, filled with seeds to be gathered or given to sow. The young prince grew strong and became a young man. He continued to plant the seeds placed in his hand. He invited his friends to come play in his trees, but some liked to play in his trees from dark seeds. He had one special friend who always spoke true. Her words filled with grace, as good friends always do. She never spoke harshly and never spoke lies. She always spoke gently with loving replies. She always gave green seeds and never took back. She never ran out. There was never a lack. Her satchel was filled to the brim overflowing with green seeds, not dark seeds, each one for the sowing. She watched the prince till, plant, and water his grove. She watched and she waited until asked to go. One day the prince said, "Hey friend, come along." She humbly agreed and began singing a song. To the grove, we will look down below at the roots in the soil and the trees that have grown. We will care for your green trees and even plant more seeds, but your dark trees will fall as this new life is sown. Sorry about that. I couldn't get it. As he walked in his field with his friends by his side, the young prince took note as his trees came alive. Green trees swayed now to the sound of the tune, but the dark trees stood stiff, clenched their fists, and seemed rude. After long years of planting and watering seeds, they've grown into mighty and powerful trees. The prince reminisced as he entered the grove. He thought back to each tree and the seed that was sown. He admired the beauty the green seeds created, but noticed that the roots, they were sadly ill-fated. His friend came prepared and brought tools along. The prince hadn't noticed, but his friend was quite strong. The tools that she carried were weathered and humble. A pickaxe, a saw, an old rusty shovel. The friend asked the prince to please pick out a tree when causing pain that he'd rather not see. The prince pointed up to one skinny grand mass. His friend said, "Watch this!" Then she took out her axe. With one mighty swing, the tree fell to the ground. Then his friend dug her shovel deeply down. The root had to die and be plucked from the dirt. Then a green seed was planted and covered with earth. The prince then exclaimed, "Can you cut down more trees?" His friend said, "Oh yes, and I've plenty of seeds." Many dark roots had tunneled so deep that it took them a while to dig underneath. Dark roots wrapped close round the green everywhere, so the friend showed the prince how to tend them with care. Her tools came in handy, the axe, saw, and shovel, and others the friend had brought here to the struggle. Then came the day when his forest was green. Not a dark tree was spotted, not any were mean. The friend then surprised the grown prince with some gifts, some tools for his new daily watering shifts. She instructed the prince not to plant the dark seeds, but to go to the cliff to cast them out to sea. The prince held the green seeds and those were all saved, but he tossed the dark seeds off the cliff to the waves. Then he traveled to new fields abounding with trees, making sure that he packed his old satchel with seeds. To the grove, we will look down below at the roots in the soil and the trees that have grown. We will care for the green trees and even plant more seeds, but the dark trees will fall as this new life is sown. The end. I absolutely loved this book. The illustrations alone are so whimsical and magical. I love it. I love it. Talk about a modern and relevant message, especially for those who suffer from bullying, a phenomenon now too widespread and rooted in modern ideology. As mentioned before, the author uses a metaphor to explain the effects of thoughts, positive and negative words. The prince, in fact, hurts himself several times while climbing the dark trees. Nevertheless, he keeps climbing and working with them. With the help of his kind friend, the prince learns to let go and throws the dark seeds into the sea, as they contaminate and pollute the positive environment that he is longing to create. Children, especially when young, need to understand their value, their own identity. This way, in the future, they will be able to distinguish constructive criticism from outright negative criticism used only to denigrate them. Words have weight, and you must be tremendously careful when using them. They can diminish a person's self-esteem and weaken his or her personality. Talking softly when using reassuring words can help your children grow up in an environment that will encourage them to thrive and lead them to engage in whatever it is that is important to them. thus developing a motivated superhuman. I mean child. Dr. Maria Richter has in fact found that the level of anxiety raises whenever children use negative self-talk. This book is an exceptional way to guide your children in those difficult and vulnerable phases, helping them to understand their value, while also helping them to avoid possible long-term anxiety. Let's face it, we live in a world full of kind and unkind people. Your child might someday encounter someone who uses words to belittle them. However, if they learn as children to plant only green seeds, they will surely be able to discard those negative words by throwing them into the sea when necessary. A beautiful and charming story indeed. That is why I am proud to award this delightful story a 5 out of 5 star rating. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you will be back here next week for another, dare I say, fun read aloud. Until then, my beautiful amigos and flamingos, keep on reading because reading is fundamental. And as always, stay safe, stay humble, stay kind, and always, always, always stay true to yourself. Oh, and be careful what you water, for it will surely grow. Virtual hugs for you all.
Oh, do please grab your hat, wave flying, it'll be a delight. Open up your eyes to the magical skies, so full of wonder, fun, adventure, a jolly grand time.